But I think the real question is, why aren't you such a fan of yourself? Like, do you think
Yeah.
that there's a lack of self love that you're dealing with or something?
I have definitely experienced a lack of self love. Without a goddamn doubt in my mind. I have disrespected myself. I have just not loved myself. I have not been compassionate to myself, right? My therapist phrased it like this, where he was like, Daniel, would you tell somebody else that you love? Would you tell yourself? Would you make somebody who you love do what you make yourself do? Um, and the answer was no. Um, and I'm proud of myself without a doubt. I think, even that, even that, I think is like faint and waning. Um, Cause I think like everybody else, man, I've always felt a certain sense of inadequacy, right? And I think for me personally, I've always had this drive to achieve, but not because I wanted to necessarily just achieve the goals I achieved, but because I wanted the validation of having achieved them. I wanted other people to say, "Hey, yo, Daniel did this, man. He's that guy, right?" Um, and like I think I've outgrown that. Like as I get closer to 25, especially. Um, but there's still like so many little things. You know what I'm saying? My biggest issue today is not being compassionate enough with myself and just
Yeah,
not being nice to myself.
I was gonna say it like that. You open up with you disrespect yourself. You know what I'm saying? I feel
Yeah.
like that's something that a lot of people do in slight moments. You know what I'm saying? Like I had this dude at work, and he's like, never call yourself an idiot, because that invites other people to call yourself stupid. You know what I'm saying? Like
Mhm.
you're like, oh, I'm such an idiot. I'm such an idiot. Oh, my bad. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
it's just like, well, don't say that. Just be like, oh, my apologies. Like, I'll be better next time.
You
Or
know what
you
I'm
know what I'm
saying?
saying? It's the phrasing, and you gotta do that positive reinforcement. And I do think a lot of people disrespect themselves in that
You know what I'm
sense.
saying? A lot of times it's not that you're an idiot. It's just that you made a mistake. But I'll make a mistake and call myself an idiot.
Uh, Almost 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
Almost every time.
Yeah,
You know what I'm
yeah,
saying? And
yeah.
that's like you got to work on rewiring. And then the second thing that you said that I wanted to touch on was, would you make somebody you love do all the things you do? And you said no, but there are things that you make yourself do in your daily routine that
Yes.
you've tried to put on me, which I
Yeah.
appreciate. You're like, Nick,
Yeah.
when you're ready to work out, let's work out. Yo, Nick, you got to read this book. And not like, hey, Nick, you want to read this book? No, you put the book in my hand and you're like, yo, you have to do this.
Mhm.
Because that's something you did for yourself. You know what I'm saying? And that's how you know it's positive.
Things like that, yes. Things like that, absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
Right? Cause I have no shame about doing. Cause I think like it's positive. But I had a moment with my mom the other day where she was like, "Yo, why do you criticize me so much?" And I was like, "Damn, yo, I make her feel bad sometimes. I make her feel like she's not doing shit right. And now, is she doing things right? Okay, maybe not. But that's not even the point. The point is about how you speak to somebody and how you approach somebody, right? And I realized the way I criticize her, and a lot of times the way I criticize myself. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And the problem is not that the criticism is not good or bad. It's that at a certain point it can be overbearing, especially when you're around somebody all the time and you're always with yourself, always.
Yeah.
And what I people is like, oh, yo, the behaviors I do with me, I do with others sometimes. You know what I'm saying? Being overly critical. Um, I think that's really the big one. Being mean. You know what I mean? I can be pretty mean sometimes.
Yeah.
Shit, I make out of pocket jokes and like disrespectful jokes sometimes. And
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
why? Because I be out of pocket with myself and disrespectful to myself sometimes too.
Yeah.
Um, how about you though, brother? How do you feel about self love? How do you
Self love.
about your self
Yeah.
love?
Yeah. I think a better way to show myself self love would be self discipline.
Hmm.
Because if I truly loved myself and I cared about, the me tomorrow as much as I care about the me today, then I would do things to better the me tomorrow. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? Where like I said, you've offered to help me work out. So I haven't gone. So I haven't signed up. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's things where he's like, nigga, get them fucking gains in. Get them gains and get up. Um, but you know, so I think that's probably where I lack in self love. I think I have a lot of visual confidence where it's just like, and when I look in the mirror, I'm like, that's a good looking dude. You know what I'm saying? But when I think about my actions and I think about the way that I perform in certain social scenarios, I get embarrassed, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And if you're embarrassed of yourself, that means in the moment, you weren't doing what was right for you tomorrow. Because you feel that's not you. That's not a character. That's not something that you would want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Because I can do something that people deem as embarrassing, silly, you know, goofy, or like you're out of pocket. If I had a good time doing it,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not mad at it. You know what I'm saying? But when it comes to, you know, oh, maybe I shouldn't have sent that text last night, or
Mm-hmm.
maybe, you know, yeah, I work. I shouldn't have said that to that one customer. You know what I'm saying? Like
Oh, I get
moments where
those a
you're like,
lot.
you know what I'm saying? Where you're like, oh, like I over. No, that you mean you overexpose, or like, you just like you weren't who you said you were in that moment. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm like, oh, you know, I'm kind, respectful, and then I say some very disrespectful, very something, you know, out of pocket, and I'm just like, okay, so maybe I'm not that. You
You're
know what I'm
not who you
saying?
think you are.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you feel like sometimes your lack of self-love may also come from like a lack of self-knowledge?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like of like, you know, the character that I live in. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, who, you know,
Who,
your actions define you, and
yeah. And sometimes you don't know who is Nick Santos.
yeah, exactly. When you're taking those actions, and you're just like, all right, well, like that didn't feel good, but I did it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And that's like that's against your character. And there's a lot of people, you know, I imagine that have situations like that where you're like, oh, I did
Damn.
something that, you know, isn't me or is out of character. Like, you know, if you work in sales, you know, like they say it's a soulless job because
Mhm.
you're manipulating people. You're getting them to get what you want. And
Mhm.
like that's why you know I stopped being a debt collector and stuff like that because I felt that I was pressuring people into helping me.
Mhm.
You know, and that does you know what I'm saying the same things that don't feel right that don't strike well with your character. That's why like I worked
No.
that job, almost immediately got depressed. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because I was like, man, I'm not who I say I am. Like I'm going against the grain of myself. But that was also a good moment to learn.
Sometimes you gotta lose yourself to find yourself.
Yeah,
You have to step in an area that is not you in order to discover you.
yeah,
I think to that point, man, you know, I feel like a lot of people experience a lack of self-love because there's the image they have of themselves and then there is the reality of themselves,
yeah,
right? And when that shit is incongruent, right? You feel shame and through shame you don't love. You know
yeah,
what I'm saying?
for sure.
Nah, that's wild. I didn't think about that before.
But you know, and it's like that being said, anybody who has moments like that where you feel that you weren't yourself, you can't hold yourself to that. You know what I'm saying? You just have to, you know what I'm saying? You just can't
Mm,
double back. You know,
that's the
you can't. You knew that environment wasn't for you, and you left. That's a good choice. You know that environment wasn't for you, and you went back and you repeated it. Now you're going against your character. Now you're not who you say you are, and that's gonna build that sense of like resentment and stuff like that. Like that's why sometimes like when you're working not a dead end job, but like a job that doesn't have that same like gratification to your morals. You know, maybe you
hmm
love money, so you'll do anything for money. Cool. You know what I'm saying? Sales is for you, but you know maybe you care more about how people feel when they leave. You want to be a teacher.
hmm
You know what I'm saying? You gotta. There's things that are applicable or that work with your moral code. And you gotta find that.
And the thing is though, but I think it's not just about finding it. It's also about accepting it. Because this is a thing I think that happens a lot. People don't want what's best for them. Not in the like eat your vegetables type of best for you, right? But it's like, yo, I imagine that there's some artist somewhere who got into the finance career because that's what everybody told them to do.
Yeah.
But it's like in their heart of hearts, they fucking hate numbers. They don't have fun with this job, right? But they do it because that's what is expected of them. They do it because they have an image of themselves as this type of person who has to do this and who has to satisfy these type of people, right? And you
I gotcha.
let them out.
Bring them out. Bring them out.
Shouts to dogs. Yeah. Sometimes it's like we force ourselves to be people who we're not. And in that process, we're never going to love and accept who we are, right?
Anytime you're forcing yourself to be who you aren't, you're denying. You're denying yourself, son. That's an act against you. That's not an act of self-love.
It's like, you go into like fucking engineering, or you go into finance, or you go into whatever field,
Yeah.
where in your heart of hearts you really like being a teacher gives you the most joy.
Yeah. And that's the thing is like if you're good at something and
It
you
ma-
don't enjoy doing it, be a teacher.
I wasn't gonna say all that. That wasn't my point. My point was it is like, yo, sometimes you have to answer your calling. And it might not lead to the most picture perfect life. It might not lead to the like $1 million, this and that. But not everybody needs that shit. And some of us really just need to find something that pay the bills and make you happy, right? Might not be the thing with the most money, but people have gotten by with less. You know what I'm saying? And come to find out, yo, I know one teacher making like 60, 70K a year. I was like, oh shit, you actually okay. Plus you got she got her husband's income. I'm like, you good, bro.
Yeah, man.
You know what I'm saying? And it makes this person happy, right? Yeah.
I wear my heart on the sleeve, but who does it? I'm in a generation where you just say fuck it. Love don't exist unless you out of school, pockets full of money, and you got no issues with your daddy or your mommy. But I ain't gonna sit here and lie. I thought about texting X a couple of times, thinking it would help. Just to remember, it was dopamine I felt at 5:53 or 6:23 in the morning. But we did most of our loving in your bedroom. To be honest, to the public eye, all they saw was kisses and hugs. But behind closed doors, you talk shit all the times. Now you trapped up in my rhyme, got me writing all the time, hoping over time I could heal myself. Now over time I just hurt myself, so I just